June 19, 1966. Dawn breaks over Le Mans, France. Engines roar across the 8.5-mile Circuit de la Sarthe, a sound that echoes like thunder rolling through history. On the track, two men, Ken Miles and Bruce McLaren, sit behind the wheel of Ford's thunderous GT40s, both armed with the same weapon, a beast of an engine called the Ford 427 side-oiler. But this isn't just a race, it's revenge, it's pride, and it's America's challenge to Europe's greatest racing dynasty, Ferrari. What follows is the story of how Ford built one of the most powerful engines of its time, so strong, so brutal, it changed racing forever. This is the untold story of the Ford 427 side-oiler, the engine that beat Ferrari at its own game, the dream that turned into war. It all started with one man's bruised ego, Henry Ford II. In 1963, Ford tried to buy Ferrari, hoping to instantly dominate the racing world. The deal was almost done, until Enzo Ferrari backed out at the last second. He refused to give up control of his racing program. But there was a problem. Ford had money, but no experience building endurance race cars, so he turned to Carroll Shelby, the Texan cowboy who had already proven himself by stuffing an American V8 into a tiny British roadster called the Cobra. Shelby accepted the challenge, and his weapon of choice, the Ford 427, the birth of a monster. The 427 was not born for racing. It was born for domination. Developed from Ford's Fairford Edsel big block family, this was an engine built for brute force. At its core, the 427 cubic inch 7.0 L V8 was massive, cast iron block, forged steel crankshaft, high flow heads, and enormous 4.0 to 3-inch bores. This thing was all muscle. But what truly made it special was something new, the side-oiler design. In most engines, the oil flows from top to bottom, feeding the camshaft first, then the crankshaft. But Ford engineers realized that at 7,000 RPM, the crank bearings weren't getting oil fast enough, so they changed everything. They ran the main oil gallery along the side of the block, feeding the crank first, keeping it alive under the brutal stress of 24-hour racing. That's why it was called the side-oiler, because oil literally ran down its side like veins of power. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't refined, but it was unstoppable. The beast meets the track. The first time the 427 to life in the GT40 Mk2. It sounded like thunder trapped inside metal. 7 liters of displacement, over 485 horsepower, torque so violent, it could tear through gears like paper. When Shelby's team tested it, the car shredded tires, cracked gearboxes, and even melted brakes. It wasn't just fast, it was terrifying. But Ford didn't stop there. They built a small army of GT40s, each one a hand-built monster, designed to run wide open for 24 hours straight. The Ferrari problem. Across the ocean, Ferrari wasn't impressed. They had dominated Le Mans for 5 straight years. Their cars were light, precise, and efficient. In contrast, Ford's GT40 looked like a hammer compared to a scalpel. Enzo Ferrari laughed at Ford's attempt, but he wouldn't be laughing for long. In 1965, Ford's first attempt ended in disaster. All cars failed to finish. The 427 was too new, too untested. Shelby's team went back to the drawing board. They strengthened gearboxes, improved cooling, and refined the aerodynamics. By 1966, they were ready, and this time, Ford came prepared for war. Le Mans 1966, the American Revolution. June 18, 1966. As the flag dropped, Ferrari took the early lead. But as hours passed, the brutal entrance of the Ford 427 began to show its worth. While Ferrari engines screamed at higher PMIs, the big American V8 just thundered along, barely breaking a sweat. Hour after hour, the side-oiler roared. Through rain, through night, through chaos. By dawn, Ferrari was broken. Every one of their cars had dropped out. Only Ford remained. And as the sun rose over Le Mans, 3 GT40s, all powered by the same 427, led the race. It wasn't just victory. It was domination. Ford had done the impossible. They had built a car and an engine that conquered Ferrari on its home turf. The power behind the legend. After the victory, the world couldn't ignore the 427 anymore. This engine wasn't just a racing legend. It was a symbol of American muscle. Its power soon found its way into street cars like the Ford Galaxy 427, Fairlane Thunderbolt, and the legendary AC Cobra 427, a car so fast it terrified even professional drivers. The Cobra 427 could hit 0 to 60 in just over 4 seconds. In the mid-1960s, that was faster than most supercars built 30 years later. Engineering genius, the side oiler difference. What truly separated the 427 side oiler from everything else was its engineering philosophy. Instead of chasing higher PMIs or lightweight materials, Ford focused on durability and torque. The side-mounted oil gallery ensured consistent lubrication at full load, a design so effective that race teams could push the engine to its absolute limits without fear of failure. It could run for 24 hours straight at near full throttle, something European engines of the era
legacy
was
heavy,
427,
but it just didn't quit.
After 1966, Ford's dominance continued. They won Le Mans again in 1967, 1968, and 1969, 4 straight years. But even as the GT40 faded from racing, the legend of the 427 lived on. It became a symbol of raw American horsepower of an era when engineers didn't care about comfort or emissions or regulations. All they cared about was winning. Even decades later, car enthusiasts still whisper its name with respect, because the Ford 427 wasn't just an engine, it was an attitude.